This episode is called The Day the World Broke. Poland, September 1939, and the true beginning of World War II. Let's get into it. In the summer of 1939, people in Europe still went on picnics. Children, they still played in the streets. Couples, they still argued about money, about the weather, about nothing important at all. Farmers worried about their harvests, and shopkeepers worried about paying the rent. Normal everyday things. The world did not feel like it was about to end. In Poland, trains they still ran on time, and the church bells still rang every Sunday. Warsaw still believed somehow that if war came, it would pass them by. They were wrong. And not because they were foolish, but because history rarely announces itself honestly. It tends to whisper, and it lies, and then boom, it detonates. Poland's existence in 1939 was itself an act of defiance. For over a century, Poland had been erased. It was cut apart by stronger neighbors, scrubbed from maps. It was treated as a concept rather than a country. Polish language was banned in schools. Polish culture survived only in homes, churches, and whispered prayers. When Poland returned after World War I, it wasn't just reborn, it was also exposed. Its borders were often contested. Its army was brave, but poorly equipped. Its alliances were fragile promises written by exhausted victors who wanted peace more than justice. Poland stood between two empires that had never truly accepted its return. To the west, they had Adolf Hitler in Germany, simmering with resentment. And to the east, they had Joseph Stalin, the Soviet Union, that watched patiently. And Poland knew this. Every Polish citizen knew this. They lived with the understanding that history had given them another chance, and that chances can be taken away. In Germany, one man believed war was not a tragedy, but a means of correction. Adolf Hitler did not see Poland as a nation. He saw it as a mistake. He believed Germans were entitled to the land in the east, that borders were lies imposed by weak men, that violence was not immoral, but violence was natural. And the most dangerous thing about Adolf Hitler was not his hatred. It was that he tested the world, and the world failed every test. When Austria fell, there was no war. Czechoslovakia was carved apart, still no war. Each time diplomats spoke of peace, each time newspapers reassured readers that war had been avoided. Hitler learned the truth faster than anyone else. He learned that no one was willing to die for principles anymore. World War I had exhausted everyone. So Poland became the next experiment. Poland still believed that one thing would protect it, that Germany and the Soviet Union hated each other too much to cooperate. That belief died in August 1939, when Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union signed a pact, the world was stunned. When the secret clauses were revealed later, the horror became clear. Poland was already divided on paper. Joseph Stalin knew Hitler would eventually turn on him, and Hitler knew that the same. But both men agreed on one thing, that Poland was expendable. For the Polish people, this betrayal meant something simple and devastating. No matter what happened, there would be no safe direction to run. On August 31st, 1939, the day before Germany invaded, Polish families went to bed unaware that it was the last normal night they would know for years. Children were tucked in, soldiers wrote their letters home. Some people sensed something was coming, but others did not. Along the German border, units waited in silence. At 4:45 a.m., the first shots were fired. And they weren't fired at soldiers. They were fired at a city. The attack was sudden and absolute. German aircraft screamed overhead before most people were awake. Bombs fell on cities with zero military value. The railway stations filled with smoke, blood, and screaming civilians. This was the Blitzkrieg, a new way of war. The Blitz was fast. It was overwhelming. It was designed to break not just armies, but minds. It wanted to break minds. Polish soldiers, they fought anyway, outnumbered, outgunned, often cut off from their command. They fought knowing the odds. They fought because surrender meant annihilation. Civilians, they fled roads that became killing zones. Columns of refugees were strafed from the air. Parents learned the sound of German engines, and those engines meant death. This was not collateral damage. This was the point. From the first days, German forces targeted far more than military resistance. They targeted identity. Teachers were arrested. Priests were executed. Doctors were shot in front of their patients. Entire villages were erased as warnings. Just gone. Poland's Jewish population, millions of people, were immediately subjected to violence, humiliation, and confinement. Synagogues burned. Businesses were destroyed. Families were marked. This was not yet the Holocaust, but it was its foundation. The world would later ask how such horror could happen. The answer began here. It began with silence. On September 3rd, Britain and France declared war on Germany. In Poland, there was celebrations. It lasted hours. But no armies came. No planes arrived. And no relief followed. The Western Front stayed quiet. Polish soldiers realized the truth, that they were alone. And then, out of nowhere, here comes the East. Soviet troops crossed Poland's border under the lie of protection. Polish units, already bleeding, now faced a second invading army. There was no strategic defense left. There was only survival. Officers were captured, soldiers disappeared, families were deported into Siberia. Poland was being dismantled piece by piece. Warsaw refused to fall quietly. The city endured constant bombardment. They ran out of water, food had vanished, doctors operated by candlelight, children carried messages through the rubble, civilians buried their neighbors in the parks. When Warsaw surrendered, it wasn't necessarily defeat, it was more exhaustion. Poland fell in weeks, but Poland did not submit. Soldiers escaped to fight again. Resistance networks formed almost immediately. The Polish state survived in exile. The first country to fall became one of the most defiant. World War II didn't begin with death camps or mushroom clouds. It began with lies that were tolerated, with violence that was negotiated, with victims who were deemed simply inconvenient. Poland was not just the first battlefield, it was a warning. And history is unforgiving to those who ignore warnings. This is historical. And these are history stories that refuse to be forgotten. Because remembering how it began is the only chance we have to stop it from beginning again. Until next time, this is Historical.